by Swami Kriyananda. This is week 4, the infinite Christ. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John contains some of the most profound spiritual teachings in the Bible. In the first chapter, many subtle truths are suggested concerning higher stages of self-realization. Here, John the Baptist is described as one reaching up toward that high state. He was not that light, the Gospel tells us, but was sent to bear witness of that light. Jesus Christ, by contrast, is described as the light itself. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. One essential truth stands out in this teaching, that Jesus came not to dogmatize people with a new teaching, but to bring them timeless, universal truths. Disciples saw the Master clothed in human form, and therefore judged him in terms of his greatness relative to the greatness of other teachers. Wisdom, however, sees the Master's very greatness in terms of a cosmic unity. There is a passage in the Path by Swami Kriyananda in which this point is emphasized. The Master, Paramhansa Yogananda, explained, "The saint who attains that exalted consciousness never says, 'I am God,' for he sees it was the vast ocean that became his little wave of ego. The wave, in other words, would not claim, when referring to the little self, to be the ocean." At this juncture, Devi, who was present, cried excitedly, "But sir, if you are one with that ocean, that means you are God." "Why I?" Master asked. "Say he is God." "But still, sir, you are one with him, and he is the only reality. That means you too are God." "But this body isn't God." "You aren't identified with your body, sir, so one may still say you are God." "Well, in that case, why do you say you? You too are that. In a discussion of this sort, it is less confusing if we say he." "But what's the difference?" "The scriptures say," Master began. "Oh, it's only your humility, sir," Devi broke in, "that makes you distinguish between yourself and him." "How can there be humility when there is no consciousness of ego?" Triumphantly, Devi cried, "But if you have no ego left, that means you are God." Master laughingly continued the earlier statement, which Devi had interrupted. "The scriptures say, 'He who knows Brahma becomes Brahma.'" "There," said Devi, "you said it yourself." Master rejoined, still laughingly, "I didn't say it. It's the scriptures that say so." Master, in other words, would not identify those words with the human body speaking them. It was in his overarching spirit that he saw himself one with the infinite, but Devi was unable to make this mental leap from a pure expression of infinity to infinity itself. "You quoted those scriptures, sir," he reminded Master relentlessly. "That means you agree with them." Recognizing that the distinction was perhaps too subtle for many to grasp, Master concluded, "Well, he who says he is God isn't God. And," he added with a smile, "he who says he isn't. And there the subject rested amid general laughter. The greater a spiritual teaching, the more greatly we betray it by particularizing it with dogmas. Truth itself, not the Christian truth or the Hindu truth, incarnates on earth with the birth of a fully liberated master. As the Bhagavad Gita teaches in the 4th chapter, unborn, changeless Lord of creation and controller of my cosmic nature though I am, yet entering nature I am dressed in the cosmic garment of my own Maya, delusion. O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth. Taking visible form, I come to destroy evil and reestablish virtue. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh, oh, oh.
I take this sacred vow. Never will I throw my love's gaze below the horizon of my constant thought for thee. Never will I take down the vision of my lifted eyes and place it on naught but thee. Never will I turn my mind to do anything which reminds me. Never will I turn my mind to do anything which reminds me not of thee. I will abhor nightmares of ignorant acts. I will love dreams of noble achievements, and I will love all dreams of goodness, for they are thy dreams. I may dream many dreams, but I am ever awake in thinking of thee. In the sacred fire of constant remembrance burning on my soul's altar, I will ever behold thy face with thy ever watchful eyes of love. Through thy grace, I know that health and sickness, life and death are but dreams. When I finish my dream story of good dreams and awaken behind the world-painted screen of delusion, I will behold thee as the only reality. So this week we enter into the great reality, the infinite Christ, Samadhi, ascended masters, living free, liberated from our soul, liberated souls, freedom from our egos. This is pretty expansive. This is a pretty big topic here. And so I went to the wisdom avatar, Sri Yukteswar, in his book, The Holy Science. We ask, how do we attain the light of cosmic unity? How do we become like Christ and Krishna? There's a story of Krishna. He was just a little baby blue boy, and his mama was taking care of him. And, you know, he was playing like most kids on the ground and took a big clod of mud and put it in his mouth, you know, and the mother came over and opened his mouth and tried to take it out. And when she looked inside of his mouth, she saw the infinite. She saw the galaxies. She saw the cosmos. She saw the stars, and she saw the infinity, the amazing, amazing, amazing beauty of that was in her little baby Krishna. And in that moment, she knew that that was the cosmic consciousness. That's the light that lives within each one of us. And we're asked today to look at how can we attain this kind of consciousness that Jesus and Krishna, this greater reality that they held within their hearts and mind. And Sri Yukteswar said, there are 5 stages of the heart. The mind can't do it. Debbie really showed us that today, right? Can't figure these things out. These are much subtler, these truths are so expansive that we have to expand our consciousness, our heart, to be able to lift it up, to see it from a new perspective. So it explains the 5 stages of the heart, and he tells us that we cannot understand infinite Christ consciousness in our mind. It is the natural unfoldment of the heart that brings us into the I am presence. the knowledge of the I am presence that Master was trying to let his devotees know in that reading. Then the 5 stages also help us to gain compassion for all. When we just see somebody as, maybe they're just at the first stage, their heart hasn't opened yet, and they're doing the best they can in a conditional world and difficult situations, and their heart just hasn't opened. They haven't received the awakening yet. So we, instead of judging or projecting our own awakeness onto other people, we can just really see them in our own truth, in our own love, in our own compassionate witness. As everyone is their own stage of growth, everyone is soon to excel to the next stage of love capacity. And we trust in that. But we start with a dark heart, and their awareness has not awakened. They have not received that grace of awakening. That's the biggest gift we can ever get in the world. And to be here, to be listening here, we have all received that beautiful gift. Our life purpose, awareness of cosmic law, they're absent, they're not within us. Sri Yukteswar says we all emerge from the dark heart through suffering, some awakening call. Sometimes our life falls apart so we can put it back together in a new way. A great trial is the only way to propel our hearts to the next stage, which is the propelled heart. And so, as Pascalina said so beautifully last week in her talk, is God present even when there's ignorance? Yes, there is light in the darkness, and it's just waiting to come out. There's waiting for whatever karmically or whatever that person needs to do to be able to open their heart, because we're very vulnerable. Keeping our heart open in a world that can be really difficult, and losses and pain and attack, it's really, really hard as devotees to keep lifting our heart, and then that beautiful pathway of awareness, and then seeing with love and responding with love. So Jesus said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I was really challenged this week. I had, it was the day after a loss of a very good friend, and my mom and I had the dogs in the car. We went to the park, and I have like a little marshmallow Bodhi, and I have Olivia, who's just like this joy child of like little 10-pounders, And so we go to Ryan Park. It's raining, I have my mom, she's rocking out to Paul Anka, and she's got her drink, and she's, what she loves to watch us. And so I get out of the car, I get my the leashes, they jump out of the car, they're so excited, my mom's waving to us, and here comes the dog police, pulls up, comes right over to us. You are breaking the law, those dogs need to be on a leash. I'm like, it's the marshmallow, it's just my little baby, and he's like, no, you're getting a citation, and if you keep this up, you could lose those dogs. And my mother's like, don't take the puppies, and it was this, and he's just, ignoring that. And in my mind, I was really I could hear like, respond with love, be kind, just be present. But my reactivity in my head was going, you jerk, these are babies. These are my little babies, and how could you do this? What kind of person would do this job and make money to do it? So I could hear myself, I'm waiting for the ticket, right? And then, I get my ticket. My mom's like, oh my God, $50, and we just laughed. But I felt that in my heart, it was really hard to, there's something about when it's your pets, I don't know, and they're like a baby, and it's like I got a little mother bear in me, I was just like, that isn't fair, and who could do that, and why would he be like that? And then I came across this reading and realized like he just hasn't truly awakened his heart yet, and he will be on his way to do that. And I can either choose to darken my heart because of it, or I can uplift and open my heart into the light. And when he comes into my mind, instead of saying, you jerk, I say, bless you. But it took a few days. It really did. It took a few days. But he just understanding that this is where he's at in his life, and probably really wanting to do be a really good person and bring his heart into the light. And so I'm just praying for him now. Sri Yukteswar said, we can't take one step on the spiritual path without awaking the natural heart's devotion. right? And yet we open it up, and oftentimes it's, we've had difficulties, we've had losses, we've had griefs, and we have to go back in through all that. And it can be very challenging, but we must have compassion for people at all stages of the heart. So this is really the 5 stages of the heart, but it's the 5 stages of compassion, the 5-star stages of growth into a sense of higher self-realization, be going beyond the egoic self and into that self, and how tricky it can be. So the next stage that all of us have to go through to realize self, says Swami Yukteswar, is the propelled heart. And we begin our seeking, and this is when we really get into the quest for truth. We must go through this, as God will not reveal his secrets unless the soul really wants to know, says Sri Yukteswar. And in the reading today, Debbie, sincerely was trying to understand. He was trying to learn these higher truths. You could see he had done a lot of reading and all that, but his capacity to grasp it wasn't there, and he replied, well, those who say he is God isn't God, and those who say he isn't, says Yogananda. And yet more and more the growth, the spiritual teaching, the harder it is to grasp. We must propel the heart to surpass the limited mind and raise our truth capacity. But at that point, it was incomprehensible in Debbie's mind. Ever like read a book and then and it'd be like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 right? And then a few days, a few years later, or after some seeking, and then all of a sudden, wow, this is just what I needed. This is just what I needed for where I am in my spiritual growth. But we all have to do this exploration and try different things. And it's just a beautiful, fun stage of like, oh, isn't that beautiful? I'm going to try that yoga. I'm going to try all these wonderful things, right? But the more we're trying things out there, we have to go into the next, which is, more the steadier space of God, where we're really refining and defining and really kind of clearing our path, and maybe using one path, because otherwise it can get diluted, right? If we're, looking at all different ones, there's something about bringing the path and having a beautiful path that really resonates with us. We can draw other things in, but to really have that mainstay, that's how we grow, and that's how we expand into the consciousness in a more propelled way. In that stage too, that is when we get the guru, because we really we ask for help. We are really saying at this state, we put out a soul call. God, please help me. And if each one of you look into your heart, there had to have been that moment, that defining moment where the collapse happened, where there was a lot of suffering, there was a lot of fear and pain. I remember a time on Christmas Eve when I had gone through a loss of, a long relationship. I left a relationship. My grandmother had died. My black lab had passed. I was having anxiety. I wasn't knowing what's going on. I was really kind of going into a collapse, a really tough time of darkness. It was Christmas Eve, and my black lab, and I had another black lab, but so I hadn't lost the dog yet. But anyway, he came with me, but very sick, right? We were walking, and it was through the high school of Narragansett. And it was like 2 a.m. I was too anxious to sleep, and it was Christmas Eve, and I was just feeling the losses, and I was feeling sad. I think I really sunk into a victim consciousness. And, we walked, and then I just sat down. I don't know why the police didn't come this time, because I was screaming, "Help me, God! Help me, God!" With all my heart, I was asking for God's help. And I just kept saying it over and over. And it just felt like, you have to hear me. You have to hear me, God. I need your help. I cannot do this without you. And I even fell asleep on my lab. And I woke up to the sun rising. I'm sleeping in a parking lot across the road from my house in Narragansett. And my dog kept me warm. And I woke up, and I knew that God had answered my call. I knew it. And I knew that my soul was so longing for God, and knew that there was nothing out there that was going to give me what I needed to rebuild my life in a way that felt like it had meaning, that could incorporate my Dharma, that I could bring my highest and true self into. and I needed to steady my heart. And that's the third stage. At this stage, you have loyalty to the guru. So your spiritual teacher, as you will need him for your help. And this could be Jesus or Krishna or Yogananda or anyone that you feel is an ascended master that is really speaking to your heart, and you feel attuned and feel that wisdom coming through. Yogananda always said, if I'm not your guru, just pray to me and I'll help you find yours. So this is a stage where we face difficult karma, and that's why we need the help of the divine. We can't do it on our own. Some people, even at this stage, they fall off because it gets too hard. But then there's service, and that is an awakening as a new motivation, because it is through service that we are able to mitigate the karma, lessen it, and lift up out of sometimes that heavy karmic challenges and difficult situations. And, it's in AY, Yogananda talks about that Kriya, which is the most important thing to come into at this stage, as Sri Yukteswar is talking about. But in autobiography, Yogananda explains Kriya Yoga. Kriya is controlling the mind directly through the life force. It's the easiest, most effective way and most scientific approach to the infinite. So as we call in the infinite Christ, we have these beautiful tools. Autobiography of a Yogi, so beautifully spoken about how to, again, to tune into Kriya Yoga and how it is the airplane route to God, and what an excellent heart awakener it is. Yogananda said, by meditating on the spiritual eye, you will pass through the portals of human awareness and enter the state of super consciousness. And that's how the great avatars lived. That is, that great reality that we're looking for, is to hold our attention there and keep it there, the staying power, the most important muscle that we can have. But we have to lift out of thought. So the thought might be here, but we lift up to the spiritual eye. We're lifting out of, okay, I got to get some groceries. All right, after meditation, I'm going to go do that. It's like, no, lift up into this state of absolute infinity, a sense of pure consciousness of the I am presence. And Yogananda said the most important practice that we can have is throughout the day, when we think sometimes like, oh, this traffic is really going to take me an hour, and we get down and the ER comes out, we'll never make it, and then we lift it up to the spiritual eye, and we say, let me see this. How can I spend this time? This hour is for me and God. Let me use this time to hold my awareness there, to be in that loving, to pray for all the people that are stressed out in the traffic with me. We lift up into that consciousness. So that's the steady heart. And in the steady of the heart, most important action is Kriya Yoga. Most important lifestyle is sadhana, our spiritual meditation, our practice, our energization, all the great tools and gifts that we've been given. And the most important relationship is between guru and disciple. So I had a loss 2 weeks ago of a very, very, very dear friend who, he was my yoga student at the YMCA, and then he came here and we formed a beautiful relationship. And when COVID happened, he said, well, I'll teach you golf because it's the only thing we can do to go through COVID, active and in nature. And it's just such a great skill. And I'm like, I have no idea. And I was like, well, can you teach my two friends too? And he said, of course I can. Right. And he did. This man, what a teacher, right? What a teacher, he was so conscious and present and kind and steadfast and so dedicated. And I mean, we were whiffing that ball like hundreds of times before we hit it an inch. There was no like criticism or laughter. It was always encouragement, right? These are the earth angels around us, right? And all of us saw like how it was so much more, Deepak Chopra wrote, Golf for Enlightenment, like how you had to hold your eye on the ball, but the spiritual eye, how I could see mental patterns within my mind of how I spoke to myself. Oh, I can't do this. And then the minute I got into that spiral of negative thoughts of I'm not good enough, I can't do this, the whole game would show up that way. And then I had to lift my consciousness. And it was like, what an incredible, the beauty of nature, laughing with friends, and what a gift he gave me. And 2 Sundays ago after service, I was driving to the indoor golf and I was calling my friend Gary to have him meet us there. And his daughter answered and said that he had passed. Dear friend of Susan's and Meredith's. And we all were like so heartbroken. We were all so shocked and so heartbroken. And, you know, we did the golf because that's what Gary would have done. And then we went back and we did an astral ascension ceremony at my house. And it was, my brother was like, I want to watch football, but he came and we shared a lot and it was very beautiful. But like the meaning in his life, you know, was just so powerful for me, like really feeling someone who unconditionally loved me, had no agenda, and became such a beautiful teacher for me. And in that loss, I started to feel this aloneness and this abandonment and this hurt and this fear of not having him in my life. You know, he was a security guy. My dishwasher broke and was pouring water all over the floor. He was there in 10 minutes, really, 6 months ago, you know, and as my neighbor, you know, he was just always there. And I was just felt safer in this world. And, you know, I went through a process of anger and missing him and such sadness. And at the other side of it, I just came it. I think Gary really led me to, in the disappointment and the sadness, like led me to a true understanding that there's no one and nothing in this world that's permanent, that's going to be that for me, that safety. I have to be that for myself. And it's only that relationship I have with God within myself and with Yogananda and that mastermind. I always say to him, you know, he's my safety. He's my love. He's my truth. He's where I find the ways of being in a world with so much change, so much possibility for hurt and fear. And I thank my good friend Gary for that beautiful lesson of, yeah, we try to find what we need out here, but it really is always in here. And when we lose someone we know, there's such a great opportunity to really reconnect with that inner knowing that the support lives within us. And that's how we live in the devoted heart. And that's the fourth stage. And also in the devoted state of the heart, we stop depending on the outer world for happiness. So that's what I really understood, that no longer we seek love and support for others, from others. We share it and we give it, but we're not seeking it. We don't need it in order to be okay. And we start transcending the mortal dependencies, you know, that each one of us are in this world for an infinite time, and yet we're all trying to explore the infinite because that's where we're going. You know, our greatest investment, you know, we can put it into so many other things outwardly, but our greatest investment is to our soul. That's the only thing we take with us, you know. And so we transcend these mortal dependencies. Not that we don't care and be kind and love each other and serve each other, but we just realize that it's not out there, it's in here. And if we stay in tune with God, with spirit, we will feel his vibrations. We will feel the guru's vibrations, the teacher. And he is the cosmic consciousness calling you in the silence of our meditations. And then we see the light more and more. We begin to see the light through our practices. And that's how John the Baptist shows up in the reading today. He was not yet the light, but was sent to bear witness to that light. But he really saw Jesus, right? He didn't project his human experiences on him. He really saw who Jesus was. He held his heart open for him, and he prepared the way. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And John prepared that for us. He denied being the Christ and repeatedly said that he was the witness of that light. And more we become witness to the light and truth as John did. And that's how we develop our heart's devotion. So Yogananda shares a story reminding us to keep motivated toward coming into the light, to keep nurturing. And he was given a gift of a plant. And in this, you know, nurturing this plant, you know, was one of the most important things that he could see as a tool for self-realization. And the seed was planted in his garden, and he took really good care of it. This robust, beautiful plant appeared, but there was no flower. Well, I'll get rid of the plant. It has no, you know, it's done its job in it. And then it said, but no, my job is to really tend to this plant, to keep service, to keep the love, to keep it moving. And it is for God to produce the flower. And in that labor of love, he continued for years to do that. Years passed, and one morning he woke up, aromatherapy, joy, beauty, the most beautiful, brilliant flower, just a symbol, a remembrance that he had turned to the light. He had turned to the higher perspective. He had lifted his consciousness out of that, oh, let's just get rid of it, to, I am in service. I trust God's going to bring, change not my circumstances, Lord, change me. Trusting that God is going to bring us everything that we need at the time that we need it. And so the clean heart, there's only love, only liberation. And that's how the great masters in Jesus lived. And that's where we're all going. Our heart is purified. It is a source of light. We are loyal and faithful servant to the divine. Jesus is that light in the reading. Jesus came here to be an example of that light. He had that clean, pure heart. Blessed is the pure of heart, for they shall know God, said Jesus. And Jesus came back here to be an example of that light for all of us. He shows us all our potential, how we can use this human experience to rise above, to become the infinite, to move out of the finite ways of seeing and being in the world and expand into the consciousness of true self-realization. We are called this week to expand our capacity to live in that. Sri Yukteswar says, this is how we find God's favor. We are baptized in the holy stream of pure love. And that's what we all have to look forward to. We are called to expand our capacity for love and light. And this is all our journey, expanding our hearts into infinity. Amen.